Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the education system or school system in Uganda. Yeah, so we're going to look at this under 7 different categories where we have the structure, we have feeding of food, we have the school uniforms, we have bullying, we have schedules, we have fee structure, and also language spoken in the Ugandan education system. So under structure, we have in Uganda we have 4 levels of education. We have nursery school, primary school, we have high school or secondary school, and then university. So today we are going to basically talk about from primary school to secondary school mostly, and under this we have boarding school, day scholars, and also international school students. So in international schools, these ones usually follow the Cambridge system of education. So if you're already studying under Cambridge and you want to transfer, maybe you're a missionary or you're someone else volunteering in Uganda and you have children, you can bring them. They can continue their studies under international schools. Then we have the local Ugandan schools where we have boarding section and day section. Day scholars usually end school. They usually come to school at around 8 a.m. and then leave to go home at 6 p.m. Those who would want to come back for evening preps can also come back and then leave at the end of prep. Then boarding scholars, you stay in school for a period of about 3 to 4 months without going home. And the biggest percentage of people in Uganda, or students, usually study in boarding school. In Uganda, there is a culture like parents leave their children in the schools. They go to work and then come at the end of 3 to 4 months period to pick up their children from school, go for holidays, and then go back to boarding school. That's usually the thing in Uganda. Boarding scholars usually get visitation days. So depending on your school, you can have a 2 weeks holiday or 2 visitation days or 1 visitation day, depending on your school. Some schools also have other add-on days where parents can come to check on their children. You can have MDD days or sports days, and some other schools also add on the parent-teacher meetings or conference days. And on those days, parents can come in, check on their children, give them a little bit of pocket money or eats. In Uganda, I call it grab. Yeah, so you give them that, and then like you go back home at the end of the visitation day. Visitation day usually starts at about 9 a.m. and usually ends at about 6 p.m. That is the structure. And then we're going to talk about school uniform. School uniform in Ugandan schools is a must. All students in Ugandan schools wear school uniform, and even the international schools do wear school uniform, but since they follow the Cambridge system or UK system, they usually have non-uniform days. That is the only difference. But all schools, whether you're in boarding school or a day scholar or an international school student / pupil, you do wear school uniform. It is mandatory. Yeah, so there is no casual wear. In the evening, for boarding scholars and the scholars who would like to attend evening preps, they dress up in the evening wear appropriate for that specific school. Usually it's a long black skirt and some t-shirt. Yeah, that is the dress code. You wear a uniform. Even the evening wear is part of the uniform because you all wear the same exact thing. Yeah. Then we're going to talk about meals. Under meals, the staple food for boarding school in Uganda or schools in Uganda, especially if you're under the schools that do the local or the Ugandan curriculum. Yeah, the staple food is posho and beans. Posho and beans every day of the week. And some schools, actually most schools, do have a change of meal, which can happen either during lunchtime or supper time. So on change of meals, you can have maybe rice and something else, maybe rice and beans or rice and meat, rice and chicken. You can have pumpkins, you can have sweet potatoes, you can have cassava. It also depends on the school. Some schools, especially like schools where parents are low income earners, usually there is a struggle. There is usually no change of meal. You eat posho and beans, and probably change like once a week, which would most likely be a Sunday, as Uganda is mostly Christian based. But there are Muslims and there are Muslim schools. So most change of meals, so if you're in a Muslim school, change of meals would most likely happen on Fridays. And if you're in a Christian based school or a non-faith based school, most of them still do change meal on Sundays. Then we're going to talk about schedules. The Ugandan schedule is gruesome. It is brutal. If you're not cut out for that life, you cannot handle. Schedules usually start from 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. up to 10 p.m. If you're not in candidate classes are students going to sit their PLE, USCs, and UCEs. So those are the candidate classes. Usually they have extension prep, depending on the school you're coming from, which usually ends at about midnight. Yeah, that is the schedule. So let's take a look. Usually you wake up at around 4 a.m., 4:30, 5 a.m. Then you get ready for morning prep. Morning prep usually starts at 5 a.m. and ends at about 6:30 a.m. Then you go for cleaning and breakfast. And I say cleaning, yes. Ugandan students or pupils usually do the cleaning around the school compound, the bathrooms, the classrooms, and the dormitories. Usually all that cleaning is done by students. There are no janitors. The janitors probably only clean staff rooms, and in some schools the students still clean the staff rooms, sorry. Yes. And after cleaning and breakfast, which usually runs from about 6:30 to 7:45, and at 8 a.m. lessons or lectures start at about 8 and end at about 10:30 to 11 a.m. You have break tea or porridge. Most schools give porridge. And then you go back to class from 11 up to 1. At 1 to 2 you have lunch. From 2 to 4 p.m. Usually during our time you still had classes at that time, but it has been changed slightly. Students these days usually go for other like technical work. So you either go for baking or mechanics, something of the sort, depending on what you're interested in doing as an individual. Then after that, at about 4 to 6 p.m., usually you have a rest and also supper at 6 p.m. up to 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., prep starts and ends at 10 p.m. So some schools usually do teach during prep. Yes, you really have a lesson during that prep time in most schools, and some don't. You have your own personal reading, so it depends on the teachers. And yes, here in Uganda, teachers dictate a lot of what students do. After that, if you're not in a candidate class, you go and rest until 4 a.m. the next day. However, if you're a candidate, you still have extended prep or extension preps, which will start at 10 p.m. and end at midnight. After that, you can also go and rest. Finally, if you do not have homework or something like of the sort to do, yes, then you can rest, and the cycle continues the next day. So that is the schedule, guys. If you have reached this far and you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing and liking this video if you enjoy it. Please share so that it can go around to other people, and other people can get to know about this beautiful channel. So let's talk about bullying. In Ugandan schools, bullying is not really common among students. Students rarely bully one another, as there is a zero tolerance level in most schools, because most schools are privately owned and students are paying for their education. There is zero bullying policy. So if you're caught bullying someone else's child, usually you will suffer an expulsion or a suspension. So bring your children to Ugandan schools. It is safe from bullying. Anyway, that aside, teachers can actually bully students in Ugandan schools. Let me give you an instance. In my primary school, we had teachers past lunchtime, like the bell rang at 1 and she taught us up to like about 1:30. And yes, it is very common in Uganda to be taught past someone's allocated time. People usually go into your break time or your lunch time, and you do not walk out on your teacher. Yes. Anyway, if you want more on that, let me know. But yes, you can't walk out. And we stayed in up to about 1:30. By the time we got for lunch, our class, other classmates who were in other rotations had already gone, other streams had already gone for lunch and had finished getting their lunch. So our class was practically done being served. The teacher on duty told us we are not getting lunch because we are late. So we tried explaining that we were held up, and there was no room for explaining yourself in most of those circumstances. And the ultimatum was we either get beaten, as in caned, yes, with sticks to get lunch, or we starve. And yeah, guess the option we chose. We chose to be caned because we were so hungry to miss lunch. Anyway, that is Ugandan schools for you, and I'm quite sure that other Ugandans have a lot to say about this. But yes, teachers usually bully their students. I don't know if things have changed because it has been a little while since I left high school, but yes, that was the situation. Anyway, that is bullying for you. Let's talk about fee structure. Under fee structure, usually we have parents are the ones usually who incur tuition fees for their children, or if you have private sponsors, usually the ones that sponsor your children throughout their education. But yes, parents pay from nursery school all the way up to university. Yes, parents usually pay for their children to attend university. We have very few people who have student debt, and actually that system has started recently, where the government can offer student loans to students to go to school. Those who cannot afford, or those whose parents cannot afford to pay for them, are now getting student loan. But I think it has been stopped or it has been brought back. I'm not quite sure, but if you need more information about this, please let me know in the comment section down below. And yes, that is the fee structure. Parents usually cover everything up to university. Then language spoken, usually we are taught in English in Ugandan schools, and that is the official language spoken in schools. Some schools add on French and German because they teach those languages, so you are allowed to speak them in school. Yes, allowed, because a while back we were not allowed to speak our own mother tongues. Hilarious, but yes, it is very weird, but that was the situation. You would get punished for speaking your own mother tongue in school. But now I'm not quite sure, but I think right now they're allowing pupils or students to speak in their own mother tongues. And yes, that is all I had for you guys today. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.